This is Alcomy, empowering those who care. Owners, caregivers, they gon' get you there. Expert insights, real stories, and more.
All right, cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Alcomy podcast, where innovation meets compassion. And I'm your host, Ilija. We got a great special guest here today, Jake. Jake, we've met several years ago at, I won't say the event because they stuck us off in the corner, poorly placed. And then we had a good time chatting throughout the day. So that's where I remember our first kind of encounter.
I think it might have been pre-COVID, actually. It's been a while now. Yeah.
It's good to have you on. Appreciate you. I'm excited about this. But let's get started. I want to do a little break the ice game. So would you rather rapid pace? First question is, would you rather be able to teleport anywhere instantly, but only do that once a day, or fly at walking speed whenever you want?
Ooh, I think I have to go with the teleportation. Yeah. I mean, I can save not that I charge for my time when I travel, but I wouldn't have to worry about that. And as fun as it would be to fly, and as much as I love Google satellite view, I'm going to have to go with teleportation. What about you?
I think teleporting as well. The only thing is I'm thinking, okay, I can only go once a day. So if I can't get back. So
ooh, shoot.
That kind of takes a little bit into it, maybe.
All right, I got to listen. This is what I tell my clients when they're being deposed. You got to listen to the question because I didn't miss it. Now there's hotel fees involved. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot.
All right, second question. Would you rather have mind reading powers but not be able to turn them off, or invisibility that only works when you're completely silent?
Oh, I'll take the invisibility, because the other option is something that already happened to me after I went to law school, is this thing about your brain you can't turn off. So
you can't shut it off.
I'm 100% taking the invisibility.
I'm totally in agreement with you there. I already have the problem of trying to fall asleep at night in my brain, thinking about a billion things. That would be. I think there's actually a movie where you can. There's a movie or some kind of reference to that. So anyway, okay. Third question: would you rather control time for everyone else, so you can pause, rewind, fast forward, or only for yourself, like a solo little time bubble?
Oh, I'd love it for myself. I've wanted something like this. I remember sitting in high school and being like, if I could just, I'd love to pay attention, but I just need a 10-minute nap.
I just need some more time.
And now we're adults, and it's more like I need to finish this job or spend time with my family. But yeah, I'm going to take it for myself. I don't need to impose myself on others. I'll let the government do that. That's my whole job, right?
Yeah.
Your time to yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. Being the CEO and constantly being asked questions, I feel like I could pause other people.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. That is fair.
But then again, I could just pause my own time too. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's kind of a toss up there for me.
I like it.
All right, last one. Would you rather have super strength, but only when you're barefoot, or super speed, but only when you're wearing roller skates?
Do I have any increased aptitude at roller skating? Because I'm not sure I can handle that power at present.
That's a good point. Let's say yes. Let's say
if I'm equipped to handle the speed and I'm allowed to wear my motorcycle helmet, then yes, I'm game.
Yeah, me too. Because I don't know. As a kid, I used to go out and play with no shoes on, and it never bothered me. But as an adult now, maybe it's because for so many years of wearing shoes, and I step on a little rock and I'm like, I can't handle it.
Or when I need that, when I'm thinking, my thought went to, when am I going to need to do that? And if I'm building a deck or something, I don't want to be barefoot while I'm using the nail gun or something.
Yeah,
so, okay,
exactly.
Right. No, that's great.
That's good. Thanks for playing along. I just found that's a fun little game. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you today. I think that this is going to be valuable for those that will be listening. And the reason is because I had my own experience of having to deal with the legal side of running a facility, right? And one of the things that I always tell people, and I think we've talked about this before, is just it's very important, make sure that you hire an attorney who really knows your law. So in this case, that really knows in California RCFE law, if you're in a different state, whatever that terminology is, because as someone who doesn't know that law, you could lose your shorts, or it could become more costly, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme of a lot of what we talk about, is not just hiring a legal professional, but there's many areas, right? We all have to lean on different folks, right? Even in the operation of my own business, right? I lean on my bookkeeper, and it's always good that those people understand the business that you are in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For sure. So give us a little kind of background. How'd you get maybe into law, and then more importantly, like why elder care or law, why assisted living, why that space? Because it's obviously very niche.
Yeah, thank you. So I started working for the law office of Gould and Hahn 14 years ago in a paralegal capacity. I had worked in the law before that. A lot of what we do is what we call administrative law, and I worked doing a different type of administrative law with a different firm before that. Gould and Hahn had been representing assisted living providers and other licensed professionals since 1997. So they'd been in this area for quite a long time. And I took to it quite well. I really enjoyed it. So when I went to night school to become an attorney after passing the bar, they brought me on as an associate. And I guess the background for me and how I got into it dovetails with how the firm got into this, right? And the firm primarily began as a licensed defense firm, right? And we're talking about not only individuals like registered nurses or contractors, right? But assisted living facilities have specialized business licenses from these state agencies. So the
Right.
core of the firm is these administrative proceedings that happen when your licensing agency, whether that's the Board of Registered Nursing, the Contractors Board, or for our assisted living clients, the Department of Social Services, if those state agencies come after your license and your livelihood, that's a legal proceeding and we handle that. So the firm had been practicing in this area for 15 years when I joined them. We're going on, it'll be our 30th year soon.
Wow.
And I realized that specifically assisted living was a good portion of our clients. And there's a lot of stuff we can do to help those clients. And I just took to it because I liked working with those clients. Like I like the personal kind of aspect of working closely with my clients on their business that really is their whole life, right? No off time. We were talking about having trouble going to sleep, and my clients laugh when I ask them what's a good time, and they're like, or when I ask them, do you have any conflicts coming up, any times we need to avoid when we're setting your depot or your hearing,
Yeah.
and they're like, Jake, I'm never off. And I'm like, I know the feeling. So yeah, we grew the assisted living portion of the business to encompass other areas. So the primary focus being regulatory compliance, but we also move into employment law and transactional work as well. So that's the background about how we got here and got into it.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, there's so many, because elderly care and people are changing and even laws are changing, right? It's just a fast moving target. Like you said, I didn't, as an owner, you're like, yeah, I have a thing planned today, but that doesn't mean that an emergency is not going to show up,
Yeah, it,
right after we leave here.
it is very dynamic. And that's something that I really like about it. It's something that keeps me interested is that there's always a development. There's some new legislation we'll talk about a little bit here. There's always things changing.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing is that it's personal. It touches so many people's lives. And so
Yeah.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for my clients who put so much into the business, but they're also just doing important work. And
Yeah.
I like to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's kind of transition there then. What are the biggest challenges that, from a legal standpoint, or maybe just challenges that you see from your position that adult residential homes or assisted living facilities are facing today?
Yeah. So I'll qualify this by saying, of course, I'm not an operator myself. You have that background, but I'm talking with them every day. So the biggest challenges I see right now, if I could just name kind of my top three,
Yeah.
and I just got off a Zoom call with a client, and this was one of our discussions, is just, the labor market, right? It's so hard to find good help. It's a very difficult job, especially for our frontline employees. And our success can sometimes rise and fall on those employees and the mistakes that they might make. The Department of Social Services is going to hold us responsible. The plaintiff side attorney who files the elder abuse case is going to hold that against the operator. So the tight labor market's an immense challenge, both at the caregiver or direct staff level or the administrator level. Two of three would be, unfortunately, wage and hour claims, right? Claims for unpaid overtime. My clients just are continue to be pelted with this, and they're tough to defend if you don't have good records, and they can be really costly. So that's a big one. And then I think the last is just regulatory oversight. I'm talking here about the Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing Division. Now, I'm not going to drag this agency, right? They're doing an important thing. Their job is to make sure these communities are safe for the people that the communities care for, right? But like all things, there can be mistakes, there can be overreach, and the clients or my clients need to understand what their appeal rights are if they feel that something that happens there isn't on the level. And they also
Right.
need to understand how those issues, while small, can snowball into a bigger issue. So
Right.
those are the big ones for me.
So let's pause there because these are all great. And you talked about wage and overtime, and I remember
Mhm.
you telling me that was a big one, and that
Yeah.
kind of ties into your second point, which is just record keeping. I hope that you could touch on briefly because we deal with this too, where when we talk to people, you know, they feel like I don't need to document this or I don't need to document that because I've never had that problem before, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
a particular I won't mention who they are, but they got themselves in a situation where they just were missing documentation. And so how important is that documentation when it now comes to you now find yourself in this legal battle? Because oftentimes people feel like if it hasn't happened, I don't need to worry about documenting it.
Yeah, yeah. There's probably someone smarter than me that has written a paper or a scholarly article about this concept, but I define it as everything's good until it isn't,
That's
right?
right.
Or another way to think about it is these are busy, like we were saying, 24-hour operations, right? I'm sure you can tell me when you were an operator, right? It's 24 hours a day putting out
Yep.
fires, or if you want to use your
Yep.
cooking metaphor about back burners, the stove has it's a 20 stovetop range, right? There's so many problems. And so it's easy to think, okay, well, I haven't really been dinged for that yet. But when the time comes, there's really not going to be any mercy for that. One thing I hear a lot from my clients is this issue, call it a missing needs and services plan, is to use a term that we use in California, right?
Sure.
I'll hear a client say to me, I've had an analyst from the Department of Social Services come out every year for the past 5 years, and this document's been missing all that time. And now the new analyst comes and they cite me. And
Right.
I can't really do much with that because the requirements are the requirements, right?
Yeah.
They're growing with every legislative session. They're growing, right? There's always something new, and we really don't have a choice to comply. And the smaller issues, okay, we can dismiss those if it's truly a technicality. But I kind of try to motivate my clients by saying that we're not following these things just for the sake of the rule. Sometimes it really can be important to the care we're providing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and having systems to do that is critical.
Yeah. Yeah. And could you briefly talk about like when you do get into that legal standpoint and
Mhm.
why documentation is important, let's say in a deposition, right? Because when you're having a deposition or you get yourself in a legal issue, there's a discovery phase, right? So you're supposed to be able to produce all of these documents, right? And then lawyers go through, they review that, and there's a deposition around these things. And so could you talk briefly to the importance of how that documentation comes into play in those kind of scenarios from the standpoint of they were your client, how that helps them if they have that documentation already in place?
So I'll use like a hypothetical as an
Sure.
example, right? So in California, we have a lot of rules to follow, but technically speaking, there's no rule that says you have to do rounding every hour on the hour during the nighttime or every half hour even, right? But some communities will elect to do that, right? They will choose to, if they have an awake night staff, to have them sign off or do something every hour when they check each person, whatever, right?
Right.
I say you have a case and there's an unwitnessed fall in the night, and then you're in litigation and they're alleging that person went unnoticed for 6 hours until the
Right.
morning shift came in. And so, that's just one little example, but documentation is important for the main purpose of it, right? To make sure that
Right.
everything, for your role as an operator too, to make sure that
Yeah.
you can't be there all the time.
Yeah.
We could talk for the whole
Yeah.
hour about
Yeah.
timekeeping and payroll, but it
Maybe,
is
maybe we'll
critical.
do another episode specifically on that, going into
Maybe
depth
so.
there.
I'm curious how long, not to, I don't want to date you, but
No,
how
yeah,
long ago were you working as an operator yourself? Because things are different now with some of the timekeeping mechanisms we have. Was it
so we sold in 2017. So
okay?
it's been what,
That's not ancient
7
history,
years?
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So we got started in 1999. Regulations were very low back then. Back then was hardly any documentation really that was required. But yeah, things like you said, the things are getting more complex, and there's a lot of things that could go wrong. And so the way that I look at documentation is it's preventative. What you're doing is you're preventing something from happening. And I'll just give one small little example. And this doesn't even have to. This is not even in the case of a lawsuit, but we used to at our facility when nurses would come, they would come and then they would verbally give their report on, let's say it was wound care, right?
Yeah, great
And
example.
one of the things that always irked me, or not irked me, but I could see becoming a problem is like, hey, if it's push comes to shove here, and it's your word against mine, they're probably going to take the medical professional's side, right? They're going to take the nurse, the physician, and I got to have some kind of documentation. So we actually we did like nurse visit sheets, and some of my staff and even one of my admins at the time was like, this is not required. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Long story short is that there was a complaint that was filed that we had a stage 3 ulcer in the facility, but all of our documentation from the time that we called the nurse, the time we discovered it, everything was documented on those sheets. And when licensing came out to do their investigation, it was very quick, and they said, okay, this is unsubstantiated. And so sometimes that documentation is preventative in the way that it doesn't even allow you to even get to the next level of a violation or a problem that could turn into a lawsuit.
Yeah, pressure injuries are a great example and probably the most common type of elder abuse claim that I see. And look, if we get into a lawsuit and I'm in discovery and I can get those records from the home health company, right?
Right.
But to your point, why maybe it doesn't have to go that far, right? If I actually, because I've been here so many times with facilities that because there's no requirement that you document your interfacing with home health, it's just not happening in any recordable way. And so I'm here either in a pre-litigation position or in early stages of litigation trying to assess liability, but I have to wait around until I get the records. And that's tough. I'd love to have something on the front end. And that's a really good example of how we can use it in a preventative manner.
And there's probably hundreds of other examples that we could get into, but I think that's kind of the importance of like why you document. It's not just because the law says it, you're trying to prevent something. Transitioning towards like the law, like what do you see are you guys only California or you guys do other states? Let me just pause there.
We do practice we're all over the state. I have attorneys in Northern and Southern California, but we're just California. So
just California. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the legal or regulatory changes that you're seeing that are coming up that providers should keep their eye on? What's going on there?
Yeah, so for California, and I can briefly kind of touch on on a national issue too, but
sure, yeah.
For California, there's some pending legislation that I think all assisted living operators need to keep an eye on. We've got Assembly Bill 508 and Senate Bill 434. So 508 and 434. AB 508 is attempting to implement required staffing ratios. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with the higher level of care beyond assisted living, but like in California, skilled nursing.
Like a skilled nursing? Okay.
I think certainly plaintiffs' lawyers know that skilled nursing facilities have mandated staffing requirements, like a ratio, like a number, right?
Right, based upon the occupancy that's currently at the location.
And they have to report that to the government, and it's all very regulated. Whereas in assisted living, we have a flexible resident-based standard that essentially just says supervision must be provided according to their level of need, which is quite vague, but also quite specialized to things that can change, right? Because needs are variable, as we all are variable. So 508 is trying to implement something more akin to the skilled nursing model. And again, this is pending for anyone who's listening, right? This is not law, but this is pending legislation, which would be a major difference for my clients.
And this is California only?
This is California. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe other states have
some similar
SNF level for assisted living, but so there's that.
Well, and I would even say though, it seems like the way that California goes, other states eventually end up following, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Whether you're talking about like a City of Berkeley ordinance that catches fire and then it's San Jose and then it's Grand Rapids and then it's the rest of the country.
Exactly.
You're right. If this starts here, then who knows? You're going to see it in Arizona, right? You're going to see it in other states where assisted living is a big business. Then 434, this is significant, but I don't think it's quite as much of a game changer, but it's with respect to the rules for notices of eviction. And personally, as an attorney, there's some confusion in the law on this area because certain localities will have certain, like cities will have certain rules about eviction. We have our Title 22 rules, we have health and safety code rules, and they're trying to implement like a 30, 60, 90-day notice period depending on different factors, as opposed to where it sits now, which is where Title 22 of the California Code of Regulations only talks about a 30-day notice, whether that's non-payment a change in level of care needs, right? It's 30 days, irrespective of how long the person has been in the facility. Or I would also add, irrespective of how critical it is that they go to a different level of care. I know that
Right.
eviction is a sensitive issue, but if someone is no longer appropriate for the facility, we're at an extreme risk, not only to our own liability, but their own care if they're
Right.
not leaving in a timely manner. So 434 in California. And then the national kind of hot issue at the moment that I've had a lot of my clients come to me is with respect to immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, right? We see this in the news. We see ICE raids, or I've had clients approached by the Department of Homeland Security to do I-9 checks, right? Our I-9 forms that we have to fill out when
Yeah.
employees are hired.
Yep.
There was, and I'm not an immigration attorney, but as I understand it, there was a policy, I think it was called like a sensitive locations policy that ICE had. And what that essentially said is we're not going to do immigration enforcement in schools, in
Right.
hospitals, in churches or healthcare facilities. And I believe that previously extended to assisted living. And that policy was revoked, right? And so I have a lot of clients expressing concern about what this means for their staff and honestly, potentially even their residents. That's a nightmare scenario, but
Right.
not
Yeah.
impossible to think of. Yeah. Yeah. Those are my
So those are
current
kind of
worries.
those are the three ones that hit you the most. Do we have any time frames like on the 508 or the 434?
I'd be happy to share with any listener. California has a great website where you can like subscribe to these bills and get email updates. Frankly, I do it myself. I ask my paralegal. He's a legislative like whiz. He actually does some local government stuff. And so I ask him to keep me posted, but I also just get the email alerts. And they're going to go through some committees through the spring and the summer, and then we'll know by the fall. And some of these bills take multiple. If it doesn't work this year, they might try again in a year or two. We'll see. But it'll be within the year. We'll know. If we connect later in the year at one of these conferences or something, I'll give you an update then.
All right. Right on the doorstep, right?
Yeah.
It's right here.
We're talking with any change like this, we're really probably talking about something that would go into effect January 1 of 2026 or maybe July 1, 2026. So it's not far away.
Yeah, I think the biggest one there is that 508, right? I mean, if that changes, that really can change things not only for facilities but for families, right? Because I imagine some of that cost is going to have to be passed on, and
it has to. And I think that's what the legislature's got to be talking about in committee is that it's expensive as it is, and where does that cost go?
Well, that's awesome. I think that right there is a nice nugget for all those listening or that will listen is pay attention for that. That's super important.
Keep an eye on it.
So what would you say are, in terms of back to the compliance aspect of things, what would you say are the most common mistakes that operators make when it comes to compliance?
A lot of the mistakes that I see, and this is just something I've learned over my years of doing this and working really closely with my clients and getting to know my clients. And I hate to say this, but the thing that draws people to work in this area, to open an assisted living facility or an adult residential facility, can sometimes be their detriment. And that is their focus on care, right? I don't think a lot of operators get into this just because they think that it's like an easy buck. It's not an easy buck, right? It's very hard. Yep. There's all these factors we're talking about working against you. And so if you've got that inside of you and you want to help, right? That can be a detriment when you bend the rules as your heart says so, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard for my clients to remember that we are in a business, right? This is a business at the end of the day. And whether it's the Department of Social Services or an employment law attorney representing your former staff, we're not going to get any sympathy for our kindness. And we bend the rules, whether it's because maybe we bring on someone and we put them as a 1099 contractor when they should be an employee because I'm just so busy right now. Or I have a case last year, we resolved the case, but someone should have probably been moved to a higher level of care. But the families they love the facility and they want their family member to stay. And it's so hard in the face of that to say, no, I can't. Nobody wants to say no to their customers, right? Yeah. We have to some extent, continue to look out for number one. That's a very broad answer, but a lot of the problems I see seem to be rooted in that decision-making moment where it's like me, or am I looking out for their interest first? Yeah.
And I think you nailed it on the head. A lot of people get into the industry for the right reasons, right? Gosh, we hear it all the time. Oftentimes when we're dealing with selling software to them, we find out what's the story behind how you got into it, right? Our CS team does the same thing. How'd you get into this? And the stories are pretty much all the same. They had a loved one that needed a place, or they used to care for somebody, and so their heart is in the right place. But you're right, when you step into this arena, right, it's a business.
Yeah.
There's reasons why there are rules and regulations and why we got to just follow them, because they ultimately protect us in the end, right?
Yeah, first be knowledgeable about them and then make the decisions to follow. Because I want these people doing this, right? I think we all do, right? We want
Yeah.
the people who have that in their hearts to do it.
Yeah, we need it.
Right. You
Yeah.
have to, going back to what you said at the opening, you have to surround yourself with the support that can help you maintain, whether that's a tool or an individual. But yeah, you have to have the tools to get there. Take like ADP, for example. I'm not trying to quote or
Yeah.
support any particular one, but it's very hard to do payroll on your own,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a
Yeah.
math whiz. So
Yeah.
you got to farm that out to the folks who do it.
Yeah,
as
don't be
their
doing
own thing.
don't be doing payroll by yourself. Don't
Or
try to
worse-
figure out those things.
Worse yet, and I see this way too often, don't let your staff count up their own hours. I see this
Yeah.
all the time. They're
Yep.
filling out a timesheet, and I say to them, "Hey, I was doing it, and I'll help my clients with an audit, and I'll say, hey, this plus this doesn't equal 8 hours. This is 9.25." And they'll say, "Well, they
Yeah.
made that calculation." And I'm like, "You are responsible for making it, though. So
Exactly.
just let a computer do it. Let ADP do it."
Yeah. No, that's good advice. We actually had a situation where we had to get time clocks because people were
Mhm.
fudging in that paper-based system. They were
Yeah.
fudging when they arrived and when they were leaving, and we ended up discovering that, hey, man, we're paying way more here.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
more than we should. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to say that in addition to just preventing any fraudulent billing, it's just more reliable, right? I think
Yeah.
any attorney will tell you that I don't want to see a handwritten timesheet that says 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. It's, listen, I'm not perfect and your staff aren't perfect either, and I don't show up at my desk every day at 9 o'clock. That's not
Yeah.
a reliable record keeping system.
Any tips that you have for staying in compliant?
Yeah, I alluded to this when I mentioned helping my clients with audits, but I'm not necessarily just here to sell myself self-audit, right? You
Sure,
don't have
sure.
to do it with an attorney, but like we said, this is a busy area, right? We're constantly busy, but set a time period where you're going to do a self-audit of your resident records, of your employee records with respect to licensing, and then separately your employee records with respect to payroll. And whatever, do it quarterly, or shoot, if you pick 4 categories and do each one quarterly, right? Even
Yeah.
annual would be helpful, right?
Just do something.
Just do something to make sure that, hey, there's a check on that, because there is someone else checking. It's your licensing analyst that comes out. But
That's
you
right.
know, do a self audit. I said I wasn't going to plug any payroll company, but I will plug Community Care Licensing here. Community Care Licensing has self audit tools available on their website. Use them.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not a surprise when they're going to come out. If you know your annual is in the spring, then do a self audit in the fall, in the winter, and get ahead of it. And then the other tip is really just like we've talked about, having some backup, whether it's the HR support that comes from a payroll company or formal legal counsel. Have someone that you can turn to with these questions, or who nags you about doing an audit. I will admit I have my paralegals nag my clients sometimes.
But it is, again, it goes back to that aspect of being preventative, right? You can catch
Yeah.
a lot of things in those. That's the whole purpose of them, is to catch things that are you may not do. One of the things that we used to do is we did a monthly check on the fire extinguishers. You know what I mean? It wasn't required, but it was something that gave us peace of mind that if something were to happen, we were going to be in a good position. But it's a simple thing that can provide a ton of peace of mind, if you will.
Yeah, and I get it. Time is at a premium, and maybe our clients would probably select the time stoppage from our icebreaker, right? Because that's what we really need is time stoppage. Give me a day to do my audit.
That's right. That's so true. Yeah, there's just so much time that's required to run these businesses. It's not just holding grandma or grandpa's hands, but yeah. So in terms of legal issues, let's touch, we don't have to get too much into it, but you talked about from the staffing side, right? And what are some of those trends that you see? Like, for instance, one of the things that I've heard is that there seems to be more of a trend in 2 areas. One, with employees filing complaints about, let's say, no breaks or time, right? Or I've also heard that since there's a lot more, because now in California, facilities are required to have general liability insurance, that now families are a little bit more, have more propensity to take legal action. Is any of that true? What can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's hard to say that wage and hour claims are trending because they've ever since I've been in this area, but there are a certain type that I've seen a trend in. Without question, in 2024, we saw a huge uptick in federal Department of Labor audits, right? My office personally handled many of these audits, right? And I saw this happening, I want to say like 2008, 2009. And this isn't a mystery, right? If you're sitting there and you're the Department of Labor and you say, what industries might have overtime? How about an industry where people have to be cared for 24 hours a day? So every however many years, they decide we're going to do an audit. And what I want to say about the audit that's so dangerous is that a lot of my clients will be lulled into this idea that I do so right by my employees. I give them time. They can take off a month. They can come back. I give them bonuses that they would never turn around and sue me. And that might be true, except that the Department of Labor doesn't need a complaining individual. All they need is a business. So
Right.
you can skirt the direct claim, right? That's litigation from the employee who has a lawyer. But last year, so many of these Department of Labor investigative audits that lead to hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties. The other thing that I've seen an uptick in is, and I'm not sure if you're familiar or if the audience is familiar with a PAGA action, but a PAGA action is a particular type of wage claim or unpaid breaks claim where you can actually bring the claim on behalf of others. So it's like a class action, but it's different, right? A class action, you actually have a whole class. PAGA is trying to collect penalties for the other employees. So say I have one employee come forward with the PAGA action who never got a meal break. The other 87 employees in this organization, you can collect penalties on their behalf. And there have been changes in the law with respect to these PAGA claims, so it's important that the listeners' attorneys are familiar with those changes. So that has been a bit of an uptick. I'm seeing more of these. There's like a PAGA warning letter that goes out first. I'm seeing more of those. And then I guess I don't know if it's trending, but it's something that I think is worth discussion. I'm seeing a concerning degree of communication or cooperation between the state level licensing people who are enforcing the regulations like fire clearance and do you have a physician's report and labor law enforcement agencies.
Okay.
Which is surprising to me, right?
So they're basically sharing information, or they're saying, hey, I noticed this here when I was there on an emergency call or whatever. Yeah. I'm now going to report this over.
I did an annual inspection and I was talking to Jane Doe and she told me she's the live-in employee and she's the only one here 7 days a week. It's not the community care licensing role to cite for that, right? But you could very easily pick up the phone and contact the agency that is. And it seems to me, and I'm not part of these agencies, but it certainly seems to me that communication is happening. It's concerning.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. And yeah, you gotta, just because it's not happening to you or you perceive it, it still can happen because, like you said, these agencies are going to come do their audits.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with licensing. And I think that's the challenge too, is that, in fact, we were just talking about this. I was reminiscing on, it seemed every year we had a different LPA, right? So like back to your story of discussing, I never got cited on this before. Yeah. And now this new one comes and cites it. Is it part of the law? Yeah, it is. Okay, then that's on you.
Or the post-COVID kind of time that from like 2023 to the present, like you weren't in business, but I have many clients who've told me anecdotes about walking them through the facility with the iPad or something.
Yeah.
Like they weren't in the facilities. And so that's a lull in enforcement that of course was going to ricochet back.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. You talked earlier a little bit about, like in the case of time clocks and things like that, or using ADP. Don't try to do that yourself. In the other side of documentation, whether that's getting things signed or just staying in compliance, how do you see technology playing a role in impacting compliance there? What's your opinion on technology versus paper?
So when you said that you got into this business in 1997, my mind went to, and I wasn't working with the firm back then, but I've seen the records, right, from my files. Those carbon paper, right? The handwritten licensing reports, right? So on their side and on our side, technology is, I think it's excellent for regulatory compliance, right? So we've got this like ever growing list of things that we need to have in our file, right? Whether that's for the staff, the trainings, or for both staff and residents, right? You've got the initial documents and then you've got revisiting, right? Or for staff, you've got your initial TB test and then, new training, right? That in all the things that we have to do, it's so hard to keep track of that. First of all, get it done in the first place. And I use DocuSign when I get a new client, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be the case for my clients, right? If you have to have the family read and keep and sign all these materials, like why not utilize technology here and then you have it in your file? It also allows for a nice degree of like transparency. Many of my clients have more than one facility, and so if you've got everything in some sort of a system, you can, and you're curious and you're sitting at your home office or at your main facility, you can actually say, okay, what is that person's physician report? And boom, you've got it in front of you. It's nice.
Well, especially like in the case of multiple facilities, right? And we talked about this at the very beginning of this whole conversation, which was, I'm not busy today, but I don't think I'm going to be busy tomorrow, but I will be. And a lot of that is you're at one location, but you're getting calls from the doctor or a nurse from another location. And so what are you going to do in that kind of scenario, right?
The doctor nurse thing is another factor, right? You mentioned your work with home health. That's only someone who has home health. There's all kinds of communications between the doctor, prescription refill, prescription change, and like
pharmacy, families.
Pharmacy, that's getting better too. Also, let's just, on a very basic level, just legibility, right? Like you can actually make it out. And then here's a concrete example, something that I see a lot. I'll see like a physician report, like an LIC 602 for our listeners who may be in California. Right. And it's got like all of these different areas and check boxes next to them, right? Can they ambulate without assistance? Do they need help with meals? Do they need help with this? Can they leave the facility unassisted? So often I just see no box checked. It's a yes or no question, doctor, right? Yet she doesn't complete that box. And I'm dealing with a case where the gentleman decided to go take a walk to the store and fell down on his way there. And my first question is, what does the 602 say? If it's blank, what am I to do? So if some of this technology, and I don't know I know the technology's out there, I don't know if it's implemented yet, but what if in that 602 process, when you're on a form online and you just can't go further?
Yeah. That's how the Alcomy digital signing and LIC forms, like in fact, the 602 is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like you can't complete that unless you've checked all the required boxes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that the physician report specifically, that has to be completed by the doctor, but maybe technology helps there too. It just in getting it done faster.
Yeah. Well, I think the other challenge is it's not just getting it done, it's getting it back into your hands. So it might be signed and it's sitting there so many times. I did it. I'll send it out. And you're sitting there out of compliance because you don't have it and you're just waiting for it. Right? Just several examples of that.
And licensing is going to want those documents to be there. And let's also remember we have a legal obligation to retain documents about former residents for 3 years. And, if it's a binder or something, that could go away.
Or if it catches on fire. One person was like, I had it in storage and the storage thing got caught on fire and now I don't have it, right?
You'd be amazed how many of my clients have told me, that person their daughter was pretty upset when they left and they grabbed their binder and walked out the front door.
Yeah.
Well, what do I do then?
Yeah. Good luck getting it.
Yeah. But if you had it cloud-based or somehow digitized, then hey, you're okay.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about operating. What are some good practices? I want to go to those listeners that'll be listening that they want to get into the business, right? They want to start their facilities, right? So what do you think that new facility owners should focus on when they're first, from a legal setup and protection standpoint? Could you talk that briefly so that we don't get people going down this line here and then they have to go back and change things and then relicense, right?
A couple of things come to mind. One, I was just talking to one of my associates about, but the first one I think is pretty commonly known now, which is to just set up a business entity, right? In California, you can hold your operational license in the name of an individual, an LLC, a corp, a partnership, whatever. There's no reason to have that as an individual license, right? Me, Jake Reinhardt, I don't need to be the licensee, right? Reinhardt Care Homes Incorporated can be the licensee. Other things, like you can put your payroll in that company and talk to your lawyer about whether that's going to protect you from certain things, right? Because wage and hour liability in California is a personal liability, even if you have that company set up. But don't
Oh,
let
wow.
that discourage you from doing it. There are other advantages.
Right.
That's like step one. Maybe step two is if you're trying to get into this business in California, and I would assume that other states have something similar, the regulatory agency requires you to prepare a plan of operation, or sometimes it's called a program design in the adult care area. And I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it seems to me that sometimes if you're new to the business and you don't know what's supposed to be in that, you're going to employ a consultant. And there are excellent consultants who can help you prepare a plan of operation. I'm not saying to not use those consultants. What I'm saying is you need to understand what a plan of operation is. If the Constitution of the United States is the rule book by which we're supposed to operate our government, the plan of operation is the rule book by which you're supposed to operate your facility. And too many operators prepare this, send it to licensing, and may not even keep a copy, Ilya. And so if it's your rule book to play the game, right? If it's your instructions, how can you follow it if you don't even fully read it, understand it, and keep a copy? Work with that consultant. You can learn a lot, right? But make sure that you know what's going on there.
I think in facilities it's called the B documents, right? Or it used to be called the B documents.
Like the part B, essentially.
Yeah, part B.
Yeah, part B of the application packet here in California. Yeah. I guess the third piece is probably just being mindful about that. So we're kind of moving in chronological order, right? You've got your company, you've got your application. Okay, I got my license, and now I need to bring in good people. I need to bring in the right residents. Be extra mindful if you are inheriting an existing operation, right? Because you could be inheriting their employment issues.
A whole lot of problems.
Are they paying people correctly? And same thing with residents, right? Are you inheriting someone who's expecting to pay below market and you have to make that part of your operation? So just being mindful, because when you're getting started, you want to get running.
Yeah.
You cut corners there.
Yeah. Anything else on that topic?
Liability insurance, right? You mentioned that liability insurance is a state requirement. That doesn't mean that people don't violate that rule to their severe detriment, right? So let me just say unequivocally here for the public, right? If you don't have liability insurance and you're sued, that's out of pocket to you, right?
Yeah.
Just if I don't have my car insured and something awful happens, except to magnitudes higher, right?
Yep.
So it's a legal requirement for elder care in California and RCFE, as I know you know. It's not a legal requirement for all types of businesses, and RCFE is only one. So even if it's not a legal requirement, it may be a prudent thing to do.
Yeah. And going back to the whole like you hired a consultant and you did that, the important thing there, I think, and of course you're on the legal side, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but the important thing there is that, like you said, that's your constitution. So if you're violating your own constitution, there's legal ramifications for that, or can be, right?
That's a citation that I've had to appeal before, is that you're not following your plan of operation. And then I say, okay, to defend this, I'm going to need a copy.
Yeah.
This is how I know what I'm telling you when I say they don't even have a copy.
They have a copy of it.
And some things on the plan are simple, right? Our evacuation point is this Motel 6 down the street, but others are more critical to day-to-day care. So we have to know.
And I would add, of course, correct me if I'm wrong again, but if you don't want to provide that type of service or whatever, don't put it in there just to make it look nice, right?
True.
Make sure you read it and make sure you're actually going to do what you're going to do there.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen in elder abuse cases, I've seen plaintiffs' counsel get a copy of that document. And then, so let's say that you, in your plan of operation, you specifically say, I'm not going to accept people who have a mental illness as a secondary diagnosis. Say we're talking about elder care. Right. And then you sent that off, you forgot it's even in there, and someone comes along and you really need to fill a bed and you admit them, right? And a lawsuit arises out of that. That attorney is going to see it and say, wow, why were you operating outside of your plan of operation? You weren't even prepared to handle Mr. Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
No, this has been good stuff. I really appreciate you coming on. My last kind of question for you is, if you had a magic wand and you could fix every provider's one legal compliance or habit or whatever, what would it be? I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm
All right, you can tell me if I think you probably know too. I like the bookend on the discussion here, because we had some magic wands at the beginning, and then this would be my magic wand if I could bestow it on my clients. It's timekeeping. It's timekeeping and payroll, right? I see in this like what we were talking about before, these things that it's always good until it isn't.
Until it isn't.
In this industry, there is a lot of people, less than there was 15 years ago, but still persisting, that are paying a daily rate, or they're just assuming hours and paying 8 hours a day. And litigation in this area or a Department of Labor audit can just be devastating. So my magic wand would be getting all of my clients to do proper timekeeping, digital preferred.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's if you've watched to the end, right? That's the nugget that you can take away and you can implement, right? As we hope people get from the podcast, is take something from these discussions that you can implement right away to make your businesses more efficient, decrease liability, whatever that is. So, Jake, again, I appreciate you coming on. Where can they get a hold of you if they find themselves in legal trouble or if they want to prevent that? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I have a few attorneys on staff, and we really endeavor to either take the consultation call when you call us, or at least get back to you the next business day. The telephone is great. You can contact my office. We're located in the Bay Area, but we practice all over the state. 510-665-1800 is our direct office line, and you can be connected to an attorney or get a call back from an attorney the next day. And then also by email. I'm happy to also respond to any inquiries at jake@gouldhahn.com. You can find us online. Gould Hahn is the firm, gouldhahn.com, and send us an inquiry. And I'm always happy to give some time, a free consultation to just get a sense of what your needs are and how we might be able to assist.
That's awesome. Yeah, just to wrap it up, again, I said at the beginning of this, I say at the end, get your guys yourself a lawyer who knows, like Jake, who knows the rules and regulations and can help guide you into where you need to be. It is extremely important to have that lawyer as part of your core team. So, Jake, again, I thank you so much for coming on, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great to see you as always, and yeah, have a great day as well. Take care.
This is Alcomy, empowering those who care. Owners, caregivers, they gon' get you there. Expert insights, real stories, and more. Real strategies to help you grow for sure. This the Alcomy podcast. Creating better spaces, it's much to share. This the Alcomy podcast. Help you build, grow, and thrive in the future of care. This the Alcomy podcast.